had the LUMIX S5 2X for about a year now, and when this camera was first launched, I was lucky enough to be one of the first people to get their hands on it. And I put out a video around the time of its launch of how I was rigging this camera up for professional jobs. Now, after a year of using this camera and bringing it out on loads and loads and loads of different professional shoots, that rig has understandably evolved over the year. So I thought it'd be nice to put out a little update video on how I'm using the camera now and how I'm rigging it up. But I found now that I've kind of landed on the ideal setup for how I like to shoot 90% of jobs where I'm using the LUMIX S5 2X as the A camera. I think the main thing that's changed over the last year has been my adoption of autofocus. Prior to this camera, I'd never really had a decent autofocus camera. So it's not something I ever really used in my professional jobs, but for certain types of jobs where I'm on my own and I've got to work quickly, I found that using modern stills lenses or zoom lenses, which have competent autofocus, has really aided what I can do across the day and the types of shots that I can get. One of the lenses that I never thought I'd be using much is the Sigma Art 24-70. I bought this a year ago. I actually got it for my Komodo for some corporate jobs I was doing last year, and I wanted just something simple and clean. And it sort of sat on the shelf because I didn't love using it. It's quite big and bulky. It's got stiff focus and zoom rings, and it doesn't handle very well if you're trying to pull focus manually on it. I just found that using this in conjunction with the autofocus on these cameras was just a really good pairing, and it just worked really well. You know, if I could only pack one lens, this could get everything done from interview to sort of handheld dock observational stuff. I've also adopted a V-mount power solution for this camera. I just found that the little LUMIX batteries were quite annoying. You get like an hour or two from them and having to pack lots of them and charge them up. Whereas using sort of a 99 watt hour V-mount battery will last me most of the day, if not all of the day, whilst powering a monitor as well. You know, at the heart of this rig, I'm kind of emulating how I like to shoot on my Komodo. So one of the things I struggle with when shooting with smaller form factor cameras and DSLRs is that they're hard to stabilize. You know, even though the S5 2X has got excellent IBIS, I feel like I have to add a lot more weight to these cameras to get a sort of decent handheld shooting experience. We're going to run through now all the individual parts that I use to rig this camera up now. I'll link everything in the description down below. I'm sure most of them will be affiliate links. If you want to purchase them, I'll get a little bit of commission from that, so just bear that in mind. Most of the stuff on this rig I've bought myself, but I did contact Small Rig to see if they would send me some parts, and they were very kind to do so. So just bear that in mind. So they sent me the side handle, and they sent me the base plate and a battery, but everything else I think on this rig I've bought myself. So we've got a Small Rig cage at the heart of this rig. It just screws on. It has 3 points of contact, so it's very secure and stable when it's on. It's got lots of mounting points on all the sides. So you've got ARRI locking pin points, NATO rails, 1/4 inch screw holes, and on the top you've got a NATO rail with more mounting points. You've got 2 cold shoes on it, more on the right hand side too. I then use this Small Rig base plate. This helps me connect rods to the system, which I use to mount accessories. It screws on to the bottom and uses 2 screws, so it's nice and secure. These are the SD cards. I tend to use 128GB capacity cards. Seems like a good middle ground. These are V90 cards, so fast enough for all the various recording modes. And then I always tend to record onto 2 SD cards. When I have enough space and we're not doing a very long shoot, I'll record to both cards at the same time. If it's a longer shoot with lots of interviews, I'll do relay record where it moves on to the next card when the first one is full. Then I've just got these lightweight Small Rig rods to go through the bottom, and then those rods are mainly used to attach this Small Rig battery plate. This is a power plate, so it's not just for mounting the battery, it also comes with a number of ports. I think it's got 2 D-taps on the side, an 8-volt connection, and then on the other side it's got another D-tap and a 12-volt connection. So that's great for powering multiple accessories, plus whatever ports I'll have on my V-mount as well. And then I tend to just flip the screen out and have the screen sort of as a side screen, because I'll be mounting a larger monitor. Then to sort of marry up the camera to the power plate, I use this Condor Blue dummy battery. I sort of felt like the Condor Blue one was the most trusted brand to use. No complaints about it. That just goes into the standard battery port, and then you'll see The great thing about these cameras is that the battery door has a little flap which allows you to then run this cable out, which is fantastic. So it works seamlessly with the camera. Obviously that goes into the D-tap on the power plate. I'm using these SmallRig 99 batteries. It's not the lightest micro V-mount that I've used, but I quite like that it adds a bit of counterbalance to the back of the rig. And the most important thing that I like about this is that it shows battery percentage remaining at the click of this button here. And this little screen just gives you a really quick and easy readout. It also has several ports, so you've got all the USBs, which is fantastic, and a D-tap on the side. So that gives me more than enough connections in addition to the power play, and that just clicks in there. This is the Sigma EF to L adapter. This has been my go-to since the original S5. It has full data pass-through, and it means that the new autofocus on the LUMIX S5 Mark II just works flawlessly. Generally, when I'm using the LUMIX S5 2X, it's on smaller jobs if I'm using it on its own, and I'm tending to more often than not rely on autofocus. So the Sigma 24-70 is just a great all-rounder general purpose lens. Sticking it on autofocus and just sort of running around all day, it works really well with this camera and this setup. It's got optical stabilization, which is really useful, and the autofocus on it works flawlessly. Since using my Komodo, I've got so accustomed to using the Komodo's outrigger handle. I was finding that when I was shooting on this rig that I was really missing that, so I'm using the SmallRig side handle, and that just gives me this sort of extra point of stability and comfort when shooting. And it also just means that I'm not sort of accidentally knocking dials or buttons on the side of the camera, which I did have a tendency to do when I was using the side grip of the camera to operate it. Then for top handle, I've got a few different top handles. I'm not necessarily married to any in particular, but this is the one I guess I go to most. I don't know if you can even buy it anymore. It's a really old SmallRig top handle, but it's a lot of the top handles I've seen at the moment are just really short. This is nice and long, and it's just got an abundance of mounting points. You've got two cold shoes. It's a swivel handle as well, so you can rotate it. It's got so many connections on the side and above, so it's just super versatile and super useful, so I love it. And it's also got an ARRI locking pin connector on the front of it, which is where I connect my monitor mount. This is my preferred monitor mounting setup. It's an ARRI locking pin connector. I like the monitor being in line with the top handle. For monitor, I've got a few monitors. I did start off using smaller 5-inch monitors. Obviously, if I'm recording B-RAW, then I'll be using the Blackmagic Video Assist 12G. But more often than not, when I'm using this camera, I'm using compressed media and recording internally or recording to an SSD for ProRes. So I prefer this 7-inch Shinobi monitor. It's probably just my eyes, they're not as good as they used to be, so I like a bigger monitor. And especially on a rig this size, it doesn't feel too unbalanced. And then I power that obviously from the battery plate, and then obviously take an HDMI out from the camera and put that into the monitor. The other good thing about the power plate, it needs to be switched on and off, which means you can permanently attach a battery onto it without it continuously draining. That's just a really nice feature of this battery plate. One thing I would note about using this setup with a dummy battery is that obviously the camera has its own shutdown process, so if you're recording and it's writing to a card and then you suddenly disconnect the power, there's a chance that you might scramble that recording. So just bear that in mind, that always power down the camera first and then turn it off from the power plate, or disconnect your battery so that it is being powered down properly. And then a little bit of an optional extra. Since doing this YouTube channel, I've been sort of increasingly wanting to capture behind the scenes content. So I often mount this little Insta360 X3 camera on a little magic arm to the side of my camera. And I just leave that running or just toggle it on and off every now and then. And it gets some really nice BTS footage of both myself operating and also the things that I am shooting. So I'll also use cine style lenses with the camera, so lenses that you might find in PL mounts. So I've got this PL adapter that I got off Amazon, there'll be a link in the description, which obviously then allows me to connect positive lock lenses. These are some Laowa Super 35 lenses I'm currently testing. They will work with the camera if you put it into the Super 35 mode. Because we've got the rails, I might attach something like a matte box on the front of that, or a follow focus. Here we've just got the Tilta Nucleus Nano 2. The only problem with this setup is it works great if you've got someone to help pull focus, but because of the HDMI cable coming out of the camera, it makes it hard to mount the focus dial to the left side of the camera. So yeah, this is my rig. It's pretty streamlined. It has a nice weight to it. It's nice to use. It's nicely balanced. It gets nice smooth footage. You know, it is heavier than just using the DSLR on your own. You should get used to that, but I'm so used to operating heavier cine cams that this is my preferred kind of style of shooting with most cameras these days. So I really like that I can get this tiny little setup in a backpack, but still have the comfort and ergonomics of a sort of slightly more professional cine cam setup. Is there anything I'm missing or anything that might improve this rig? Let me know in the comments down below. That's it. Thanks for watching, and until next time, see you later.